Hey, what's up? So I ended up modifying my exhaust, specifically the mid-pipe. I basically went to a muffler shop and had them cut off the resonator and put like a straight pipe to it. And this is something I wanted to do since I got the exhaust. I was always wondering like what it would sound like. And basically the resonator is just a pipe that's slightly larger than the pipe itself of the exhaust. And inside it has tiny holes. And then there's fiberglass, I believe it's fiberglass, on the outside layer. So what happens is when the exhaust gas comes out of the engine, the tiny holes absorb some of that sound and kind of deaden it or muffle it and create like a deeper tone, but then you lose some of those awesome sounds like the turbo spool, tiny crackles, things like that. So yeah, I was kind of skeptical of how it's gonna sound, but I didn't want it to sound obnoxious, just wanted a little bit more sound. And I bet this is something every person with the R400 exhaust wonders about. The sound increase, if you think percentage-wise, about 10%. It's very subtle at first. Like when you start up the car, you can't tell the difference at all. But it's when you drive it, especially when you stand outside of the car and somebody else drives it, you hear it right away. You hear the spooling, especially when you rev it up and when you let the RPM calm down. You hear that kind of like the winding down the turbo, like it's awesome. It's something I really wanted to get. So even though it's a straight through exhaust, basically there's no restrictions whatsoever, it still muffles the sound quite a bit. I'm not sure what's going on inside of the mufflers themselves. There's 4 of them at the back, but the resonator definitely muffled quite a bit of it. Usually it runs about 100 to do something like this. Yeah, it's not expensive and it's something I highly recommend if you want to squeeze a little bit of extra sound of this exhaust. I mean, this works on any exhaust actually if you want a little bit extra. So the question on everybody's mind is probably about the drone and has it increased at all? Well, the answer is no. I mean, the exhaust actually has drone, but I got so used to it that it isn't a big deal at all, especially on the freeway, like you can't even hear it. At first when I installed it, of course I heard it, but then like a day later I got so used to it. To me, there's like no drone now. But with this modification, I haven't heard a single like difference in any situation, be it freeway, street, windows up, windows down, it doesn't matter. It hasn't affected it at all. Super happy about that because I don't want any extra drone. I mean, I could deal with a little bit extra, but preferably not, you know. So at first when I got this done, I started up the car. I actually didn't hear any difference at all, and was kind of bummed out. I was hoping that you would hear it right away, but it's not. It's something that's quite subtle, and it's something you would hear if you're used to your exhaust, if you know your exhaust. So if you've had your exhaust for a while, you'll definitely hear the difference. I mean, especially with windows down, you're just cruising, you hear like a cleaner sound. To be more specific, I guess, like when you rev it up and when you hear the tiny crackles and pops, so you hear more of them, or they become clearer. Instead of them being kind of muffled and bassy, they're just clearer. Not a good explanation. Not sure, you know, but you'll see what I'm talking about. I mean, just get it done. So if anybody's wondering how to squeeze that extra, boom, there you go. I'm super excited just to have it. It's like, I really like this exhaust, everything about it. Unfortunately, it doesn't translate too well on video, and I've heard some people say like it sounds like a Civic or something, which is total nonsense. I mean, I've heard Civics and this sounds nothing like it. It's just, you have to hear it in person. I've had a number of people actually who heard it in person, heard it on the video, show up and see my car, and had it, you know, I revved it up and everything and gave them a ride, and they just loved it, you know, the way it sounds. It's just different. There's more bass to it in person. I mean, the camera mic just doesn't pick it up. It sounds more sort of hollow on camera. From what I hear when I'm outside of the car to what I see in my video, it's like, it's very close. It's about 90%, but it's missing that bass. You know, the exhaust is very deep. It's sort of like when you hear a song and it's supposed to have bass, but when it doesn't, it just doesn't sound as good. Well, it's the same case here. Yeah, I highly recommend this exhaust. I mean, the tips alone, the look of the tips, it's like 4-inch tips. I haven't seen a single exhaust that looks as good. And just the mufflers, the design of it, and the, you know, the white pipe, everything about it is just like such high quality. There's a bunch of good exhausts, but they just don't look as good. So for those who are looking for that ultimate look to fill up those gaps in the bumper, that's it, you know. I mean, the only thing I wish I had is stainless tips instead of titanium, and I know a lot of people like titanium, but I got this exhaust used, and the finish on the titanium tips, it's a little bit dulled out and scratched. So, I mean, when it's brand new, of course it looks legit, but I think stainless steel would look better because it would just like create more contrast with that bottom piece. But I don't know, it's fine, you know, maybe I'll polish it later, but I haven't got to it. I've been talking about it for like months. Just leave it alone. Not much to it. See you guys in the next one. I'll show you a bunch of clips now.